For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warm-up from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Adam Rosenberg. He does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Taking a look at this great game of baseball. We're going to be chatting with him a lot about the player prop market, what has been all cashing for him, what has not been. Additionally, we're going to be taking a look at some of the teams that he's feeling a little bit bullish/bearish on as well. So we're going to have a great chat with Adam in segment number 2. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. Over at EdgeBoost, they're making sure that bettors are able to access their funds whenever they want and that all of their gambling-related transactions are going to be approved every single time. If you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize the promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Thursday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Now I did have to do this a little bit at a time. I had to record this more around about 9:15 p.m. Eastern time, but that said, we do have quite a few of these games already in hand, and right now for that Yankees versus Royals game, as I take a look at things, this is in a rain delay 0-0 in the 6th inning, and with regards to this one, you were able to get a good start out of Seth Lugo. 5 2/3 innings scoreless. Anel Zerpa was set to come in from there, and Will Warren went for 5 scoreless innings, but the rain delay likely knocked him out, so that might be a game that's suspended. That might be a game that is still raging on, and right now, White Sox versus Astros is in the balance, and this Brewers versus St. Louis Cardinals game is currently going on, but looks like the Brewers are going to take care of business. Currently, it's a 6-0 score in the bottom of the 5th inning, and how about the Miz, Jacob Mizrowski? In his MLB debut, 5 hitless innings to start out with, 3 walks, but rock solid, and Jackson Trio lends up a little bit of support in the 5th inning, gets his 12th home run season as Sonny Gray just lit up like a Christmas tree. 6 runs allowed in 4 1/3 innings. Andre Granillo, he has come in and he's trying to hold down the fort from here for the St. Louis Cardinals, but a really good debut for the young gun of the Milwaukee Brewers. You did see the New York Mets be able to get past the Washington Nationals 4-3, and if you had the Mets run line in this one, 3 runs in the 9th by the Washington Nationals, with the last run coming on a wild pitch. That was wild, to say the least, and Fredwin Diaz, he's been pretty reliable thus far this season as he had to come in after Ryan Stanek could not get an out. For Kodai Senga, leaves this game early. He's probably going to be heading to the injured list as he got a bit of an injury. 5 2/3 innings scoreless. From there, you had Oscar Bazobin give you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Jose Castillo, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. And then you had Edwin Diaz be able to polish off the mess that was left by Ryan Stanek. And pair of home runs for the New York Metropolitans. Jeff McNeil, 7th home run season off of Mike Soroka. And Brandon Nimmo, 13th home run in the campaign for Soroka, gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings. From there, Zach Brzezinski, a scoreless inning. Eduardo Salazar was able to come through for 2 scoreless innings as well. The Texas Rangers have been your top 100 team in all of baseball, but a nice explosion from them in their series against the Minnesota Twins as they explode for a 16 spot in this one. 16-3. They take it to the Twins. Now for the Rangers, still 22 overs, 46 unders, and a push as far this season. But they put up a 16 spot in 2 out of 3 games in this series, 34 runs in total. And for the Rangers, they had the home run ball working. Adolis Garcia, 8th home run of the season. Sam Haggerty, 2nd home run of the season. Jake Berger, 10th home run of the season. Josh Smith, 6th home run of the season. Wyatt Langford, 13th home run of the season. Evan Carter, 4th home run season. And Patrick Corbin, well, he did his part. 3 runs allowed in 5 innings. Obie Milner, Chris Martin, along with Ezekiel Duran, position player, and Cole Winn are all able to lend a scoreless inning. In for the Minnesota Twins, Jonah Bride had to pitch 2 innings of relief. He gave up 3 runs, including a bomb. That was still better than Bailey Ober, though. Went 4 2/3 innings, allowed 7 runs, 6 walks, 4 home runs. Cole Sands, well, he pounded Sands, giving up 4 runs in an inning. Joey Wentz, well, he was Wentzing in pain, giving up 2 runs over the course of his inning of work. And then Danny Kaluman out of the bullpen scoreless. So yay, verily there, and yay, verily to the Colorado Rockies, who get their 13th win of the season. If you, like me, had the Giants are online, this one was brutal. They were up 7-5 in the 9th inning. You then, from there, had an error by Casey Schmidt that would have ended the game for a double play, and instead, the Colorado Rockies win 8-7 as Hayden Birdsong solid in this one. 3 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings. Did allow a home run to Mickey Moniak, his 7th home run of the campaign. From there, Sam Ejele does give up 2 runs in a 3rd inning. Eric Miller provides out the bullpen scoreless. Ryan Walker scoreless inning, and then Randy Rodriguez gives up 3 runs in the 9th inning, only 1 of which was earned, though, as he had the errors happen out there. But then you take a look at the flip side for the Colorado Rockies, and Antonio Sensatella was a human pinata. 9 hits, 7 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings, including a home run. Going deep was Mr. Smith for his 1st home run of the season, Dominic Smith. And for the Giants, they hang all 7 of these runs up in the first 5 innings, and then they couldn't hit the bullpen. Jimmy Harrigan, along with Juan Mejia, combined for 4 scoreless innings. Seth Halverson, a scoreless inning of his own. So the Rockies do find a way to persevere and get the job done. And Tariq Skubal, he continues to be dominant. The Tigers, 4-1 winners over the Baltimore Orioles. 7 scoreless innings for Tariq Skubal, now has a sub-2 ERA. Tommy Kahnle allows a solo home run in his inning of work. Going deep, you had Dylan Carlson get his 4th home run in the campaign, and then you were able to get a scoreless inning out of Will Vest for the save. Pair of home runs for the Detroit Tigers, as it is a welcome back for Parker Meadows, his 1st home run in the campaign off of Dean Kramer, and Kramer gives one up to Dylan Dingler, his 7th home run season. Keegan Aiken as the opener, a scoreless inning. Andrew Kittredge, a scoreless inning in relief. Kramer, 4 runs allowed over the course of 7 innings as a bulk guy, so not necessarily so tremendous out there, but what is tremendous is taking a look at this great game of baseball, and if you're taking a look at what we're getting trend-wise, it has been very much an underwhelming season thus far, but we've seen a few more overs here in the last 7 days. Last 7 days, 42 unders and 41 overs with a few games pending from Thursday, so pretty even Steven there, and the money line favorites are starting to come through. 51 and 35 on the money line, that's about 59.3%. Overall for the season, more like 57.9%, 585 and 426 on the money line. Meanwhile, the unders are hitting at a little bit north of 53%, 518 unders to 458 overs. That's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's where we're getting trend-wise. Coming next, let's take a look at the player prop market. Let's take a look at some hot and cold teams as well with our good friend Adam Rosenberg over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Adam Rosenberg aboard. He does such terrific work on so many different fronts, whether that be over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, helping out on the baseball front there. I know that he is doing an amazing job over at Babies Who Bet as well. He does the Dad's Bet Baseball Show /podcast as well, and so much more. You're able to follow him on Twitter /X at Hey Rosenberg. Last name is spelled Rosenberg. And Adam, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
That's the first time I've had my entire handle spelled out. Thanks, Greg.
Always have to make sure that we're sending the people to the right place because you send us to the window. So it has to be repaid to you. And just what has been working out for you the last few weeks in terms of betting baseball? Because I know you're a guy that you take a look at a little bit of everything from some player props, a couple occasional features, list goes on. And I know that you've been able to find a wide variety of ways to be able to cash this year.
So it's so funny. I was having this conversation with friend of the program, Colby Marchio. I've pivoted on some things that have been working for me and haven't. The DPs, the double play market was really working for me up until maybe 2 days ago, but I haven't really changed what I've been doing. I just have been constantly looking at pitchers, and pitcher props. And as of recording, I just cashed a very nice Jesus Luzardo under earned runs, which is very nice. But what I am starting to see is I'm starting to look at teams, and I'm really not buying them no matter what the price is, no matter what point in the season are. I think there are certain teams that are very dead, and there are certain teams that are very live that are still criminally undervalued.
Yep, it is really interesting to take a look on that front as well, because I was mentioning this on my Twitter/X feed. The fact that I just take a look at a team like the Detroit Tigers right now, and it just feels like even though they've got the best record in the American League, and if I'm not mistaken, the best record in the league as a whole, they're a team that sort of gets disrespected. And I feel like there are some of these teams where you just take a look at the name on the front of the jersey and they don't necessarily get the respect that they deserve. Some of these guys like a Chris Bubich, for example, he's a much better pitcher than what his numbers and his odds would indicate.
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned the Tigers. We just talked about this we recorded Dad's Bet Baseball today. We just talked about this. That team is the best record in baseball, and they're 9-1 to win the World Series. That's insane. They don't get that respect because they play in a park that is gorgeous, by the way, but suppresses hitting. They're finally getting everything out of all of their first round picks that they had. They have the 4th highest pitching WAR overall, the 2nd highest starting pitching WAR overall. The Tigers are a really good team. I think the Tigers can have everything together to put it all. They pushed the Guardians to 5 games in the LDS last year. Despite, I think Skubal was the only starting pitcher. I think everything else was a bullpen game. So I would completely agree that you look at the lineup and it's probably a lot of folks that aren't household names. So nobody really likes to bet them, but Spencer Torkelson has been great. Riley Green, well, not this week, but Riley Green, generally great. It's a good team like Gleyber Torres. It's a great team. So that is definitely one that's there in terms of just, teams have just overall been disrespected that I'm constantly trying to back. And then right now we're also seeing a lot of the bad, quote unquote, bad teams are making little runs. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the White Sox are quietly hot right now.
Yeah, the White Sox being able to win that game on Tuesday against the Houston Astros, that was very interesting. We've seen the Pittsburgh Pirates be able to win a few games as well. And I do think that it is really interesting to take a look at some of these teams that have been able to get hot. And one team in particular, the Toronto Blue Jays, I think are so interesting as well because they are way down with their power numbers. It's not as if the starting pitching has been magnificent. Hasn't been bad, but hasn't been magnificent. What do you make out of a team like that where I don't know how long lasting it's going to be, but time and time again, they just flat out have been getting the job done?
I mean, this Toronto team has a high ceiling and their pitching has I think a high floor. They had the worst bullpen in baseball last year, so everything had to get better. They were terrible in one-run games. They blew more saves than any other team. And they're also playing a division with a team that I think, despite any little bit of excitement and extra spend, I think that the Red Sox are heading in a completely different direction. I know that things are a little bit more exciting for them because of Roman Anthony, but this Blue Jays team, I think at time of recording, is in a playoff spot if things were to stop the season today. Their 3-man rotation for a playoffs would be Bassett, Gausman, and I would assume Scherzer, which is a pretty good 3-man rotation for the playoffs. So I'm very much buying this Toronto team because hitting is cyclical. We're not even really into hitting season yet. Things have been fine. I think the bullpen's been getting a little taxed because guys like Bowden Francis can't get out of the 4th inning. But overall, they're getting exactly what they need. Lucas, I think, is pitching, holding the Cardinals as of recording time. This is a good team. They're a very good team. And I think there's a lot of other teams that are around that I think are pretty bad and are going the opposite direction as well.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to take a look at some of the reversals of some of these teams as well. As joining me on the show, we do have Adam Rosenberg right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And just how do you take a look at some of these teams that have been going through their funks, like the Athletics? They had a stretch where they went 1-20 in 21 games. They were about 500 to begin the season. You've got a team as well, like you mentioned with the Boston Red Sox, where it's been shaky for them. And I just keep taking a look at this Arizona Diamondbacks team, and man, it's just not great for them either.
So the Diamondbacks team is interesting to me because I think they've been able to do a lot without, when Corbin Burns went down, Corbin Burns hadn't really helped this year because he came out of the gate not looking great, and then he got hurt. And I think that team still lacks an ace, but they're doing pretty well. I think their lineup is really good, and they have Corbin Carroll having an MVP-like season so they can ride his back. On the other side, a team that they're probably going to battle for a wild card spot, I think that I am ready to declare dead. I'm ready to hold a wake. I'm ready to do a Shiva call. Atlanta Braves, I do not think are alive. I think that the Atlanta Braves had this really great spot against those Diamondbacks. When they came to Atlanta last week, they could have swept that team. Vibes could have been high. And keep in mind that the Diamondbacks were off a pretty crushing loss, had to fly across the country. They got swept. One of those games they lost because they gave up, I believe, 7 runs in the top of the 9th. Iglesias, things got so bad for that Braves team, they went to Craig Kimbrell for 24 hours. So that Braves team, I think, is on its way out. They're continuing to be priced as if they are the 2022 team. But this team, when you look at how they performed, I mean, when Strider gave up runs in the Giants game a couple days ago, team kind of looked listless after that. They had 3 more innings left. So I'm not buying this Braves team. I'm fading them. And I think you can get a lot of value on it because they're such a popular team with guys like Ron Acuna, Marcell Ozuna, Austin Riley. They have these big hitters, and these guys are hitting, but this team is a turnstile on Ks. They're fundamentally not sound, and their pitching has been pretty mediocre.
Yep, and how much do you think that with regards to the Atlanta Braves as well, it just hurts the fact that they're in an NL East where, I'll say it, the Washington Nationals are not the world's worst team. The bullpen is really awful, but the rest of the team is not necessarily too bad, especially when Mackenzie Gore is pitching. Obviously, the New York Mets have been rock solid. Phillies have been a little bit up and down without having Bryce Harper on the injured list, but still, they're doing a relatively fine job as well. And I just take a look at what we're getting in terms of that entire division. I think that that's really working against the Atlanta Braves right now.
It is, but this is the thing, is that a lot of these losses have come to everyone else outside the division. They've been okay against the ones in there. I think they have a pretty key series against the Phillies and the Mets where they could effectively be buried. There are feisty teams in this division. I mean, the Marlins are starting to show that they are really a quad A team of just guys in and out of the lineup, and everyone's trying to break in. This Nationals team is pesky, but they were hot for a bit and then they've kind of cooled off. But the Mets are the ones that are moving across in that NL East. I just think that this Braves team doesn't have the pitching. Strider looks afraid to throw anything other than heat, which is not good for him and has not been good in the past because it ends up going over the wall. And I just don't think that this Braves team is particularly very good. You can't win a lot of championships when you got 4 guys on the roster with K rates hovering around 30%.
Yeah, it is relatively rough. And Michael Harris and also Ozzie Albies have just not been helping out that team as well. And I am right there with you. As joining me on the show, we do have Adam Rosenberg right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And then a little bit more on the prop front. I know you've been playing a lot of different things. I know the double play market has been one that you've been attacking quite a bit. I know you've been looking at just bad pitchers and attacking them all season long. But as we head into the summer months, is there going to be perhaps a few changes that you do make in terms of taking a look at some of these props and perhaps a little bit more on the hitter side of things now that the weather is heating up nationwide?
Now that it gets a little hotter, I will be back to betting dongs again. I'll also be looking at the flip side of that, where I think you can get a lot of value on pitcher over earned runs, teams first to 3. Team first to 3 is one that I've really been enjoying. It's a lot of fun when you have a dog or a slight dog as a team. If you can get a road team at first to 3 at plus money, assuming it's not the Colorado Rockies, it's a pretty good bet because they're going to get their at-bats first. Those are markets I've been looking at a lot. I try to stick within a lot of the team markets because if you allow yourself to cap based on who really is controlling the flow and has the ball, it's a lot easier. Batters are great, but what I end up still 4 at bats a game. So, but as things get hotter, I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be focused. I think Colby and I are going to team up to do some home run derby stuff because we both did really well on it last year. That's kind of a big thing for us. But yeah, bring on summer because right now it looks like Seattle in the Northeast. Up until today, it's 80 degrees. It's weather-wise awful. So I'm ready for warmth. I'm ready for home runs to get out of the park.
Oh, absolutely. I think that that's so well said by you. And is there anything in particular other than, like the obvious ones, like Antonio Senzatella, that's just a big giant fade, giving up 15 hits per 9 innings, my goodness gracious. But is there anything that you do take a look at with regards to these pitchers? And how do you gauge really the recency of a pitcher, like the last 5 or so starts, versus what they've done overall for the season?
Overall for the season is fine, and I look at it from a big picture perspective on Ks, and I just try to see where things are popping out. But I look at last 5, last 3, and then last 3 within either the road or home split that they're in. Something I've been really paying attention to a lot, third time through the order. So as great as Jack Flaherty has been, and this is someone who is part of this Detroit renaissance of why this team is 20 games over 500, he has guys batting .460 against him third time through the order. Oh. It's not going to cut it. So that's something that I constantly am looking at. A lot of these guys play with fire when it comes to their hitting. You look at hard hit rates on, like, Ben Brown is a great example. You took the Phillies today. Ben Brown has an elite K rate. Ben Brown also has a 45% hard hit rate against him, which means that he's just basically playing with fire as he's throwing. So these are a lot of the things that I try to look at. Like Chris Bubik is another guy who I really like. I think that his stuff's really good. But again, he's got a rising hard hit rate. And Framber Valdez is another one. A lot of these lefties actually is what I start to notice. So I'm paying a lot of attention to hard hit rate. I'm also knowing if a guy has 2 bad starts and there's nothing structurally wrong with them, this is really key. They don't have a medical issue. I'm going to back him in that 3rd start. Jesus Luzardo is a great example. You and I did a recording while we had to wait for his Cy Young futures because he got left out there for 12 earned runs. He has an ERA of 30 in June. Taking those games into a context, I think that first game where you and I saw him blow up, I think he was tipping pitches. And the second one, his catcher got scratched, JT Realmuto, hours before the game, so he had a different catcher than he usually does. Whenever I see that a catcher is held out last minute, I'm always going to fade that pitcher. But this was a great spot at home against this Cubs team that has not done well against lefties from a K front. He looks like he threw 100 pitches and struck out 10. Now, when everybody in the public is saying, hey, this guy stinks, maybe take a look and just see if his velo's down or things like that. If velo is down, I fade a guy. But if nothing has changed on that front, I'm still going to back them based on the whole body of work.
Yeah, a guy that's been interesting to me this year is Seattle's Emerson Hancock because he's got an ERA that's well north of 5, but he's actually given up 3 earned runs or fewer 9 out of his 11 starts. He just has 2 big giant outliers that are completely driving up his numbers. And how much do you want to be taking a look at that, keeping into account, all right, some teams' numbers are just being warped either positively or negatively based on like a few outliers. Like I look at the Reds and the road hitting, for example, reason why they're towards the top of the big leagues in terms of like road batting average, road runs per game, is at 24 spot against the Baltimore Orioles, and I think that those are things that very much need to be taken into context.
So I have a website, Handygraphs, that I know you've used, a lot of people use. You have 30, I look at 30, 60, 90 last plate appearances for a batter against a specific hand, which you can do on that site. And that's telling me if teams and players are in form or if there's a blip or if something might be just normal, because you can look at their overall team performance. And I agree with you on this Reds team. This Reds team hits way better rather on the road, but generally speaking, this Reds team just doesn't hit at all. So, you can look at things like the other side. It's the Cleveland Guardians, who have been terrible against lefties no matter where they are. They put up a 7th spot as we're recording right now. Nick Lodolo still got 6 or 7 Ks out of this. So these are things that I look at. I try to look as micro as I can within the batter forms, which is a lot of times going to be last 30 plate appearances against the type of hitter, because that's going to give you a 2 to 3, sometimes 4 game stretch within a batter, which is pretty important. And it's kind of telling you how a batter is rounding into form.
Yep, I think that that's very well said. I think that that's a great way of being able to put things into context. And I know you are doing absolutely amazing work, Adam, taking a look at this great game of baseball. Additionally, I know that you're going to be doing so much work with regards to taking a look at things during the summertime in terms of baseball, turning it forward to the football season, and you're in so many different platforms. So let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you can find me at Hey Rosenberg, HeyRosenberg. You can listen to my podcast, Dad's Bet Baseball, 2 times a week. That's at Dad's Bet Baseball. And 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 10 a.m. I do the MLB prop show for Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And you can find that on their channels. And yeah, and then I'm just kind of bopping around all the time. Happy to jump in. I'm always happy to talk baseball and talk stuff. I just had Javon Alford on my show. We just talked about prospects and could have gone on for hours.
Absolutely. And Javon does a great job of being able to gauge this great game of baseball as well. I've had him on this podcast quite a few times, just like we always need to get Adam aboard. He lends such great insights, taking a look at so many different aspects of this great game. So big thanks, Adam, for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the Beast Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis for every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by one of our good friends, and Adam Rosenberg, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and so much more. Every single time he joins me, lends such great insights, especially on the prop front. Did so once again today. So big thanks to Adam for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes I made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So, without further ado, let's dive in on this first game of 901-902 on the card. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they walk the plank on the road to face off against the Chicago Cubs as Cade Horton, here's a who, is going to be going for the Cubbies, and Paul Skeens is on the bump for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh does find themselves as in between a -110 to a -120 favorite, and between -115 to -102 on the Cubs. We're right now seeing one initial opener of a total of 7 with the over at a -125 and the under at a +105. And this is a total that I'm going to be willing to go over on. I did set my total at a 7.7. Looks like the wind is going to be directional towards the beginning part of the day and then starting to blow out as you get towards the back half of the game. So I do think that that needs to be taken into account. And Paul Skeens, you have to take into account how incredible this man has been. A 188 ERA, 0.5 home runs allowed per 9 innings, 9 strikeouts per 9, fewer than 2.5 walks allowed per 9. Here's the thing, though. The team is 6-8 in its starts as far as the season because the team is averaging fewer than 3.3 runs per contest. Now, has the offense been a little bit better? Yeah, it has. You've got Oneil Cruz is able to give you 12 home runs. He's been able to supply the team with about a 350 on base. You've had Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I don't know why he's batting ninth, but he's in the lineup and he's been able to hit about a 300 for the team. But the problem is guys like Henry Davis, Jared Trollo, Alexander Canario, Tommy Pham, this turnstile of guys at the bottom lineup. Spencer Horowitz only at 215 or lower, and outside of Oneil Cruz, Andrew McCutcheon, and Brian Reynolds, you don't have a single guy in the roster with north of 5 home runs. And for the Chicago Cubs, you've got 5 separate guys with at least 11 home runs. Dansby Swanson not really moving the line, but he's giving you 12 bombs. Michael Busch north of a 350 on base with 11 home runs. C. Suzuki, Pete Armstrong combined for 33 bombs, both hitting north of a 260. Kyle Tucker north of a 370 on base, 13 home runs. And the guys around them like Nico Horner, Ian Happ, they find a way to move the line. And for the Cubs, what has been really stunning for them is if you look at the last 30 days, they are currently number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, with a 106 bullpen ERA entering into Thursday over the last 30 days. No other team has better than a 234, and we've had guys like Brad Keller, Daniel Palencia, Drew Pomeranz all give you a sub-3 ERA. It's been a rough season for the likes of Ryan Presley, but you know what? They're starting to get good innings out of something like a Caleb Thielbar as well, and for the Pittsburgh Pirates, this has just not been a bullpen that's necessarily been too great. Dennis Santana has been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA. Caleb Ferguson has not been bad for this bullpen, and if you look at the last 30 days, 12th in terms of bullpen ERA at a 376, still in the bottom half of the big leagues overall for the season, with the likes of Joey Wentz and company not doing their part, and David Bednar is improving, but still has not necessarily been too amazing for the squad. And I do think that Cade Horton is going to be able to give you a relatively okay start here. He's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but it's allowing 2.3 walks per 9 innings, just a skoge over a home run per 9, 411 ERA, 403 fielding dependent. I just don't trust in the Pirates being able to do anything for Paul Skeens. I set my total at 7.7. I like that 7 over, and I do like the Cubs on the money line. 903, 904 on the betting board. It is Miami Marlins on the road against Washington Nationals. Mitchell Parker is on the bump for the Nats. Edward Cabrera is on the bump for Miami. Miami is an underdog between even money to +115 and between -118 to -135. That number on Washington. 9 is the total. Over and under both at -110, and for the Nats, I set them at a -126, so that -118, -120, I'm going to be willing to lay the money line with them. As for Edward Cabrera, it's been up and down for him. He clearly has really good stuff, but the thing is, he just doesn't know where the ball is going to go, and that for his career, he's got north of 4 walks per 9 innings. He's just been really inconsistent on that front, and it feels like right when he turns the corner, he goes straight down the toilet bowl. So that's been a little bit less than tremendous. As for Edward Cabrera this far this season, currently posting up a 3.99 ERA, and he's been able to do a relatively okay job of avoiding the deep ball. He's giving up 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, back right around about 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but again, north of 3.5 walks per 9 innings. That just causes for so much inconsistency in general, and you just take a look at Edward Cabrera and the way that he does allow runs upon runs. That does get to be a little bit of an issue. Now, if you take a look at what he was able to do in the month of May, and you're able to include this first start in June as well, the ERA is more around about a 2.1, so he's been able to improve on that front, but you just never know when that regression is going to happen, and because he knocks himself out of starts early, that means that you're exposed to a Miami Marlins bullpen that is in the bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Ronnie Enriquez, Anthony Bender have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but then you've got the likes of a Calvin Fauché, Valentin Belozo, Tyler Phillips. These guys give you north of a 4.5 ERA. Anthony Veziano has not been so great, and it's not like this is some sort of a Miami Marlins team that has been really slugging the ball out or anything like that with the Miami Marlins right now. They do find themselves 23rd in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Part of that is because they do play in a little bit of a pitcher-friendly ballpark, but you just don't have a lot of power on this team. Kyle Stowers has been able to give you 10 home runs. He's down to about a 340 on base, but he's moving the line. And then you do have plenty of guys that they find a way on base, like Liam Hicks, along with Xavier Edwards, are both hitting at 272. Dane Myers has been the same since coming off the injury list, but he's been able to 300. You've got Connor Norby hitting for about a 250, but just not a lot of power outside of Augustin Ramirez, who's now down to hitting about a 225. You've had Jesus Sanchez be able to give you a little bit of on base, but that's a little bit of an issue. But you want to know another issue? Mitchell Parker and the way that he has been pitching this far this season is, man, he actually had himself a relatively solid start to the season, then that went straight down the toilet bowl, as right now he is rocking well north of a 4.5 ERA, and he's just not getting a lot of swings and misses. This guy is down below 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He doesn't really give out a lot of walks, but still, it's been really, really rough for him in terms of being able to just not get those whiffs, and additionally, he has been able to keep the ball in the yard. He's given up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, but 3+ runs allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. Actually did look a little bit better in his last start against the Texas Rangers, but the Rangers have been one of the most sad and pathetic teams in all of baseball in terms of generating runs, and that was the first time since April 22nd that he had allowed fewer than 3 runs at a start, so that shows you where he's at. And I mean, this is a Washington Nationals bullpen that they themselves are dead last in the National League in terms of their bullpen ERA. Now, they used up Eduardo Salazar for multiple innings on Thursday. That's actually a good thing because this guy is absolutely terrible and you don't want any part of him, but Brad Lord north of 4 ERA. Jackson Rutledge has been rough. Jose Ferrer 5 ERA. Kyle Finnegan has been relatively solid as a closer, but for the Nationals, this is an offense, and though they were cold against the New York Mets, if you look at the month of May, they were actually a top 7 team in terms of runs per game. Ahmed Rosario was hitting above a 270. Nathaniel Lowe has been able to give you 8 home runs. Average has not necessarily been there, but CJ Abrams, James Wood, they both give you some solid wood. Abrams is hitting north of 265. Wood north of a 365 on base. He's been able to supply 16 home runs. Josh Bell not hitting for any average whatsoever, but you know what? He's been able to do a nice job of being able to give you a little bit of power as well. So it's an interesting circumstance. I do think that Washington gets to Edward Cabrera and they find a way to be able to persevere at home. I set my total 9.3, so I like the over, and with the Nats willing to lay up to a minus 125 on that money line. 905, 906 on the betting board. The Colorado Rockies are on the road against the Atlanta Braves. Bryce Elder hopes to not pitch like he's elderly for the Atlanta Braves, and Edman Marquez is on the bump for Colorado. Total on this game is 9. The under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. Between minus 270 to minus 288 is that number on the Atlanta Braves, and the Washington Generals, aka the Colorado Rockies, are between plus 225 to a plus 240, which shout out to them for winning yesterday. They were gift wrap that win, but you know what? They got to win, and I don't think that they're going to make it 2 in a row. If you're looking to lay a run half right now with the Atlanta Braves, you're finding that in the neighborhood about a minus 135 to a minus 140, and I'm very willing to lay that run line. I don't really trust in Bryce Elder, but I set this minus 158 run line here, so I'm going to be willing to lay it. With regards to the Bryce Elder, he's actually looked a little bit better recently. Owns a 4.08 ERA, has allowed 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 7 starts. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and light the world on fire in terms of strikeouts or anything like that, but he's starting to give you a little bit more. So, I mean, that's something that you can feel just a skoge bit better about. He is giving up about 2.5 to 3 walks per 9 innings, so that's a little bit testy. And as we know, this is an Atlanta Braves bullpen that we saw what happened to them last week. They had to sign Craig Kimbrell for 24 hours. It was that bad. And you've got Desmond Hernandez, who's currently on the injured list, but still, you've been able to get some relatively good innings out of Enyel De Los Santos. He's been able to give you a sub 3.5 ERA. You've been able to get some good production as well out out of some of these more middle relievers. Dylan Lee has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've got a guy in Aaron Bummer who's been actually okay for you. Rossio Iglesias has been terrible. Like, man, that guy is completely lost in the wilderness. But for the Atlanta Braves, even though this team is in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game, they have really been able to improve with Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back in the fold. He's already up to 6 bombs in his first 18 games with a 436 on base, so he has made an immediate impact. You've got Matt Olson giving you nearly a 350 on base. He's up to 14 home runs. Marcell Ozuna darn near 4 on base. He's been able to give you 10 bombs, and then Austin Riley is up to 11 home runs as well. Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris, they just need to give you a little bit more, both hitting at 233 with not necessarily a ton of power, but Drake Baldwin has been doing a nice job moving the line. He's been hitting darn near 300, and then on the flip side, you've got yourself a squad in the Colorado Rockies that's averaging 2.5 runs per game away from home. Yeah, that is dead stinking last in the big leagues, and this is a team that they continue to hit below the Mendoza line of 200 when they're on the road. Now, they do add in there Orlando Arcia, Theory Estrada, that should be able to give you a little bit more, but these guys aren't even paying big dividends right now. You've had Hunter Goodman actually hit 8 home runs on the road thus far this season. You take him out of the fold, the team has 19 home runs in 34 games on the road, so just set and deplorable right there. Jordan Beck has 5 home runs on the road as well, but he's hitting just a 217, and you just have a cavalcade of different guys that are not able to hit on the road. Like I mentioned, Orlando Arcia, he's in this fold as well with him, Ezekiel Tovar, Ryan McMahon, Brenton Doyle, Michael Toglia, all these guys hitting a $176 or lower. I actually think Toglia is now down at the minor league level because he was that bad. And for the Colorado Rockies, their one saving grace was bullpen pitching, but they completely pooped the bed in that series against the San Francisco Giants. Still have a few guys who are giving you some solid innings, as Seth Alverson has been able to give you a sub 475 ERA. You still have Zach Ognos, who had a little bit of a rough series against the San Francisco Giants, still doing a pretty rock solid job holding down the floor. Victor Vodnik has been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Jimmy Harrigan has been able to deliver some good innings. And Juan Mejia has actually not been awful for this team as well, but I mean, man, that offense is absolutely terrible, and the Atlanta Braves should just lay waste to him. As Urban Marquez, I recognize that the fielding depends more than 2.5 points better than the ERAs. He's not giving up a lot of the deep ball. He's only giving up less than a home run per 9 innings, but 6 strikeouts and 3 walks per 9 innings, a 7 ERA, getting banged around like a piñata. I do think that the Braves absolutely take it to him. I set my total at 9.1. I like the over, and I do like the Braves on the run line. 907, 908 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers are playing against the St. Louis Cardinals. Eric Fetty Wap is on the bump for the Cardinals, and Freddie Peralta is on the bump for the Brew Crew. And the Brewers, who find themselves between minus 150 to minus 165 favorites, are between plus 128 to plus 140 is that number on St. Louis, and 7.5 is the total. Over and under are both at minus 105 to a minus 115, and with the Brew Crew, I did set them at a money line price of a minus 148. If you're taking a look at that initial FanDuel opener on the run line, that's at a plus 136. If we can get up to a plus 140, and I do think that we should be able to get there, I would be willing to take a shot on this Brewers run line. For Freddie Peralta, I do fear a little bit of regression. He owns an ERA of a 2.69, but fielding independent is more around about a 3.90, and he has been experiencing a career low in strikeouts. He's only getting about 9.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, which for most pitchers is really good, by the way, but for his standards, that's not necessarily up to snuff. He's given up 3.6 walks per 9 innings, a little bit more than a bomb per 9 as well. And then for Eric Fetty, I don't know how he's got a sub 360 ERA right now, because he has got a 432 fielding independent, doesn't allow the deep ball. He's keeping the ball in the yard, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, but 5.6 strikeouts and 4 walks per 9 innings, backed up by a bullpen that involves Ryan Helsley, who's been blowing games left and right. As 5 blown saves this year, that's not so great. And you've had Jojo Romero be able to pick it up a little bit for this bullpen. He's down below a sub 330 ERA. You've been able to get some rock solid innings as well out of the likes of Steven Matz, Phil Matone. These guys have been able to give you sub 250 ERA along Kyle Leahy as well. And for the Cardinals, it's not like you've got a ton of power with this team. Right now, Nolan Arenado, Lars Nootbaar, and Wilson Contreras have 8 home runs, and they're leading the way. And for Arenado, I think at 242, you just expect a little bit more out of him. Brandon Donovan has been nice at moving the line. He's hitting at 310, and then Alec Burleson along Mason Wynn, both right around about a 340 on base. So this team is doing just enough to find a way. And then Ivan Herrera, he's got 7 home runs at a small sample size as far this season, hitting above 300. That's been rock solid, as really the entire catcher spot has hit quite well for the St. Louis Cardinals team this season. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, they do a nice job of just being able to get guys into motion to be able to generate their runs, as you've got 4 different guys: Christian Yelich, Bryce Terang, Jackson Chourio, along Sal Frelick, who have all been able to give you at least 10 stolen bases. You've got Frelick along with Terang, both give you about a 350 on base. Jackson Chourio is up to 11 home runs, so only about a 283 on base, and Christian Yelich is just touch and go. does have the team lead in terms of home runs with 13, but 1 week he's up, 1 week he's down, and this team really does come and go with Christian Yelich. And this has been a Milwaukee Brewers bullpen that has been quite shaky thus far this season because Yopai himself, Elvis Figueroa, who are so good for them this season, not with the team right now. You've had Jared Koenig be a little bit touch and go as well. You've had Rob Zanowski, hopefully I said that last name correctly, the guy with a Z. He's been able to give you a sub-2 ERA, and then you've got Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, Nick Mears, all give you a sub-3 ERA. And for Uribe, he's a nice Swiss Army knife sort of guy that you can use in a wide variety of different spots. Going back to this lineup, Joey Ortiz, Caleb Durbin have been really dead bats for them, but you've got Rhys Hoskins up to 10 home runs. William Contreras, Frelick, Terang, I'll give you about a 350 or so on base, and I do think that for the Brewers, they are going to be able to get a relatively good start out of Freddie Peralta. If he could get a plus 140 or higher, I do like the run line because I do think that this is going to be a higher scoring game. I think that both of these starters experience a bit of regression, so like that over, and I do like this run line of the Brewers. 909, 910 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks play OC Slam Diego Padres. Stephen Kolek is on the bump for the Pods, and you've got Mr. Ryan Nelson on the bump for the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks do find themselves as a slim favorite of any between minus 119 to a minus 125. Between even money to plus 113 is that number on San Diego. 9.5 is the total. Over and under any between minus 105 to a minus 115. And did set my total 9.3. Here at the 9.5, I'm going to be one to take a shot on the under. For Stephen Kolek, he's not necessarily blowing guys away or anything like that, but he's just been rock solid in general. Right now, he's applying a 3 ERA. That fielding dependent is more than able at about a 398. Only 6.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, but has kept the ball in the yard, giving up only about 0.6 home runs per 9 innings, and he's backed up by a really good bullpen as well. So you've had Jeremiah Estrada be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Jason Adam has been very good this year, as Jason Adam has given you a sub-2 ERA. Robert Suarez has been one of the best closers in all baseball. Team as a whole is a 3.14 ERA, so these guys have all been able to come through time and time again. Yuki Matsui, Adari Matahon are able to give you some nice multi-inning appearances as well. And then on the flip side, you've got an Arizona Diamondbacks team that, well, their bullpen is currently 27th in the league with a 5.21 ERA. You've been able to have Jalen Beeks be able to give you some nice innings in long relief. Additionally, you've been able to have a guy in Shelby Miller be able to step up a little bit more as well. Both of these guys have been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA. Kendall Graveman came off the injured list, and now he's back on the injured list after he flat out sucked. Juan Murillo has been giving you a 5 ERA, so these guys have been very suspect, to say the least. Now, you do have a Diamondbacks team that continues to be in the top 6 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game, and Eugenio Suarez, along with Corbin Carroll, both have 19 home runs apiece. And for Suarez, doesn't necessarily hit for as much average as Carroll, but he's been able to move the line a little bit more here recently. Geraldo Perdomo has been able to give you 360 on base. You've got Gabriel Moreno, Pavin Smith, both hitting in that neighborhood about a 275 or so, with Smith up to about a 394 on base. And Ketel Marte, him coming off the injured list was so big. 12 home runs in his first 150 at-bats, north of a 400 on base. And for the Padres, this has been a relatively pedestrian lineup this season. Even on the road, they've been slightly above average with regards to run creation. You've got two guys in Fernando Tatis Jr. along with Gavin Sheets, who have been able to combine for 24 home runs, both hitting in that neighborhood about a 250 to 260. And Manny Machado's really done a good job of moving the line. 380 on base, 10 home runs, so as far as coming back to him, the Xander Bogaerts contract is really an issue, though. 323 on base with 3 home runs. He just expected more there. Jake Cronenworth not hitting for a ton of power, but you know what, at 370 on base, that'll get the job done. You got Martin Maldonado at the catcher spot along with Elias Diaz. It's just not been great, to say the least. Brandon Lockridge is right now seeing some at-bats on the outfield. That's not necessarily been amazing either, but I do think that for the San Diego Padres, their pitching is going to be far superior to that of the Diamondbacks, where you've got Ryan Nelson, who he was relatively solid in the bullpen, and I do think that for Ryan Nelson, there might be a little bit of positivity after his last few starts. They have been shaky, to say the least, as last time out gave up 7 runs against the Cincinnati Reds. Prior to that, he was actually looking halfway decent. Overall for the season, 4.60 ERA, but 3.68 fielding dependent, getting 7.5 strikeouts at 3 walks per 9 innings, holding the ball in the yard, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. So, circumstance where I did set the Padres at a plus 106, so at a plus 107 or better, like that money line, and I'm in on this 9.5. Under, set my total 9.3, 9.11, 9.12 on the betting board. It is the San Francisco Giants on the road against the LA Dodgers, as Yoshinobu Yamamoto is on the bump for the Dodgers. Logan Webb goes for the Giants, and the Giants are underdogs, defending between plus 134 to plus 145, minus 155 to minus 165 is that number on the Dodgers. 7.5 is the total, under is minus 120, and the over is even. I did set Yamamoto at a minus 146 on the money line. If you're taking a look at this run line price on the LA Dodgers right now, you're getting just a plus 125 on getting a run half. Personally, I'm thinking that we should be able to get a plus 146 or better on the Giants. Right now I'm seeing a plus 145 as I do this right now, so I will be looking at the Giants at some forward capacity, even if worse comes to it. Like, getting a run and a half at a minus 142 or better is something that I'd be willing to sign up for, because I do think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. Can't quite get with the 7.5 under. I did set my total at 7.7, but still, when you consider that the LA Dodgers are averaging about 5.5 runs per game, that is a pretty low total. And for the LA Dodgers, it certainly has been a lineup that has been full of power, with Shohei Ohtani give you 23 home runs. He's moving the line, give you a 380 on base. You do have some interesting lefty-righty splits in this one, but you've got Freddie Freeman along with Will Smith that are very much bulletproof to those. Both of these guys have been able to give you north of 4 on base. After a rough start to the season, Mookie Betts is starting to rise up. He's back up to a 350 on base with 9 home runs, and Andy Paz has been tremendous. 12 home runs, he's hitting at 285. Teoscar Hernandez, 11 bombs. He's been a little bit touch and go because he has spent a little bit of time dealing with injury, but that said, Michael Conforto, he's really the problem for this team. Hitting a $175 with 4 home runs. You just need a little bit more there, but next month he has been able to find a way on base, 360 on base. But for the Dodgers, what has really been the, shall we say, problem spot for them has been the bullpen, and for the San Francisco Giants, that's been their saving grace. I recognize that Randy Rodriguez threw north of 30 pitches yesterday, so he's not going to be out there, but you still have so many guys that you're able to rely upon that have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA that I do think are going to be able to get the job done in this case, as you've got the likes of a Tyler Rogers, Eric Miller, Camilo Duvall, who's been a really, really good closer for this team, all being able to give you a sub-2 ERA. Spencer Bivens is a relatively good long guy. He should be able to give you a sub-3.4 ERA. And for Logan Webb, you're probably not going to need too much relief pitching for him, because this guy is an absolute workhorse. And I will say, for his career, closer to about a 265 or so ERA at home, closer to a 409 ERA on the road, and his home runs per 9 rate does double when he is away from home, so you want to take into account those home and road splits. But 10.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's right now posting up a 258 ERA with an even better fielding independent, giving up 1.7 walks per 9 innings. 5 home runs given up at 87 innings thus far this season, so the guy has been absolutely supreme. And you've got an LA Dodgers bullpen that's right around league average in terms of ERA. Now, you are getting back Michael Kopech. That helps, and Kirby Yates, who spent a little bit of time on the injury list, he's back as well, but it's not like Yates has been very good. He and Tanner Scott both rocking a 3.98 ERA, so need a little bit more there. They've dealt with injuries with Luis Garcia. Again, not too much of a loss. It's really been the long guys, like a Jack Dreyer, who's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. They've been rock solid. Ben Casparis has been as well, but probably going to utilize him a little bit more as a starter as well, so have to figure that knocks him out of his appearance as well. Anthony Banda has been a little bit touch and go, so when it's all said and done, I do think that you've got a little bit of value here on the Giants, even though the Giants lineup has been hit or miss. You actually got William Adames going over the series against the Colorado Rockies, being able to hit a pair of bombs, as he has been pretty miserable thus far this season. They're dealing with the injury to Matt Chapman, so you're seeing a lot more Casey Schmidt, who, the error that costed you on Thursday, so that was not necessarily great. And then you do have the likes of Patrick Bailey, Luis Matos, Lamont Wade Jr. hitting below the middle line of 200 at their respective spots, but that said, Eloy Ramos, 11 home runs, 365 on base. You've been able to get 11 home runs out of Wilmer Flores as well. He's giving you about a 325 on base. Jung-Ho Lee continues at a 275. I do think that there's some value here on the Giants, and I do think that they have the propensity to be able to get to Yoshinobu Yamamoto at the very least, to be able to get him out of the game and then get into that bullpen, as Yamamoto has been absolutely tremendous this season. He's posting up a sub-225 ERA, and the fielding independent very much supports it, as well as he's got a fielding independent of a 290, 10.5 strikeouts to 3 walks per 9 innings, allowing just 0.7 home runs per 9 innings. Just think that this total's one a little bit too low. Like the over, I set my total 7.79 at a plus 146 or better, like the Giants on the money line. 913, 914 on the betting board. The Angels are on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Jack Conowitz is on the bump for the Halos, and we got Charlie Morton on the bump for the Orioles. Right now, the initial opener that I'm seeing is the Orioles being a favorite of right in that neighborhood, about a minus 155 to a minus 160. If you're taking a look at the plus number on the Angels, going to be getting that between a plus 135 to a plus 140. Total on this game is 10, over and under both at minus 110. Did set my total at 9.8, so I am actually going to be taking a look at the under. Charlie Morton has pitched a little bit better recently, and he does go up against an LA Angels lineup that they're in the top 4 in the big leagues in terms of home runs per game, but they are feast or famine at the plate in that they don't hit for any average whatsoever. For Morton, a just ghastly 6.59 ERA, 5.24 fielding independent. He is giving up 5 walks and 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, but has been a little bit better recently. Last 3 starts, a combined 6 runs allowed. He's gotten 5+ strikeouts in every one of them, even when he went 2 to 3rd innings against the Athletics, and that was a road start. So when you go into Sacramento, I almost just throw those numbers out, because that's just completely different from every ballpark in the big leagues. He still was able to get 5 punch-outs, so a little bit of credit there. And then you do have a guy in Jack Conowitz that I want absolutely no part of whatsoever. For Jack Conowitz, this guy does not belong at the big league level right now. A nice hearty 5.61 ERA, backed up by a 5.47 field independent, 4.4 walks and 6.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. He walks a lot of guys. He gives up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. innings, he's about as useful as a poopy-flavored lollipop. He's given up 4+ runs in each out of his last 4 starts, and he's backed up by a bullpen that's in the bottom 3 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. As you've been able to have the corpse of Hunter Strickland actually give you some halfway decent innings, so yay, verily there. But Ryan Zephyrian, Kenley Jansen, recognize he's been better recently, but Reed Detmers, all these guys give you north of a 4.5 ERA, just has been very far from spectacular. Now, what has been spectacular has been the home run power of this LA Angels team. Again, you're getting just below 1.5 home runs per game out of this team, as you've had Taylor Ward supply 18 home runs, just a 260 on base, but 18 home runs. Logan O'Hoppe, Joe Adell combined 27 home runs. Both of these guys sub 300 on base. O'Hoppe's down to a 236 average, just 223 for Joe Adell, who's setting fire to the rain. But you know what? You've got the power ball going on there. Ori Soler's been a little bit hit or miss in that he's been banged up in only 214 himself, and then Luis Renifo. 1 home run inning, a 208 with a 242 on base. I mean, what's this guy good for? So that's not great. And then for the Baltimore Orioles, this has been a squad that's been averaging less than 4 runs per game. So that's a little bit of an issue, but you do have Ryan O'Hearn, who's been moving the line, give you a 390 on base. He's been able to supply you with 9 home runs. You've got Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Alday starting to rise up, both hitting above a 270, entering into yesterday with 8 home runs. You've been able to have Ellie Rushman look a little bit better recently, and now you've got some reinforcements coming in with Jordan Westberg, who's been injured all season long, along Colton Cowser coming back up as well. Now, this is an Orioles team that they themselves are in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA, but you've been able to have some relatively solid innings. The opener from yesterday, Keegan Aiken, Brian Baker, Felix Bautista, give you a sub 3.4 ERA, but again, when you've got Matt Bowman, Seranthony Dominguez thrown there as well, someone like Cionel Perez, who I recognize he's been injured, but I mean, these guys have been posting up well north of a 4.5 ERA. I do think that the 10 is just a skoge too high, just because, again, with the Angels, even though they might hit some homers, I think that they're going to be a lot of solo shots, especially with Mike Trout not necessarily hitting for as much average this year. So I'm going to be taking a look at this total under, and for the Orioles, set them at a minus 154 on the money line. Right now, that run line is only a plus 118. I need at least a plus 128 to be able to take a shot there, so I might actually end up on a chalkier money line. I think that when it's all said and done, we should be able to get better run lines than what we're seeing right now. Should probably be able to get something like a plus 128 to a plus 130. We'll be looking at the Orioles in some form of capacity, depending upon overnight numbers to go along with the total under. 915, 916 on the betting board. The New York Yankees are on the road facing off against the Boston Red Sox, as it is Garrett Crochet who's going to be on the bump for the Red Sox. Right now, it's old to be determined who's on the bump for the New York Yankees. This is a game that's presently off the board, and pretty much all these American League games, by the way, as I record, are off the board. Really, really strange. So you're going to get a lot of Greg Peterson handicaps on this one, as right now it's looking like, according to CBS Sports, who they're the most accurate, it's going to be Ryan Yarbrough. And if you do get Ryan Yarbrough going up against Garrett Crochet, I did set the Red Sox at a minus 143 on the money line. Willing to lay up to minus 143 there, plus 145 or higher, looking at the Yankees, and then set a total of an 8.3, 8 or less, looking at the over, 8.5 or higher. The under, Garrett Crochet has been very masterful all season long. Not quite at the strikeouts per 9 rate that he was a season ago, but still giving you some relatively good swing and miss this season, as he's been able to supply the team with a 235 ERA, feeling dependent more in the neighborhood of a 268, 11.3 strikeouts, and 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He is coming off of giving up a 5 spot against the New York Yankees on the road, but I do think that he's going to be able to rebound from that. And for Ryan Yarbrough, this guy has been actually a really good find for the New York Yankees, because they always utilize the opener back in the day for Yarbrough. Now, he did give up the 8 runs against the Boston Red Sox. That was just an absolutely ghastly start, but prior to that, he had given up 5 runs in his previous 4 starts combined. I do think that he's going to be able to find that form once again. Does have a 447 field lead, depending that he has been giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, but he's, for his career, been able to get about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, up to about 8.5 punch-outs per 9 innings. Not giving up a ton of walks, 2.6 walks per 9 innings. Now, the issue that you run into with the New York Yankees is that this bullpen is not very good. Mark Leiter Jr. is very willing to lighter it up. He's been giving you up about a 4 ERA or so. And then additionally, you've got Devin Williams, who's been absolutely awful in this bullpen. With Luke Weaver currently being out of the fold, you're going to be relying a lot on Yuri De Los Santos, who's been pretty rock solid. He's been able to give you sub 3 ERA. Tim Hill has been able to give you a sub 3 ERA as well. So these guys will be able to do an okay job. But for the Yankees, they're going to look to slug their way to victory with Aaron Judge, 490 on base, 25 home runs, just absolutely insane. And then Ben Ben Rice, Trent Grisham, both hitting for about a 240, a combined 25 home runs. With Grisham, move the line, give you about a 350 on base. Yasan Dominguez is give you a 340 on base. Cody Bellinger, after a rough start to the season, he's picking it up. He's hitting at 260 with 9 home runs. And Paul Goldschmidt starting to regress a little bit with that on-base percentage, but all in all, it's been pretty solid. And then on the flip side for this Boston Red Sox team, Alex Bregman being on the injured list has been not so great for them, but you've got Rafael Devers along with Weiler Abreu, 27 home runs between the two of them. Devers, don't ask him to pick it up with the glove, but a north of 400 on base, so he's been picking it up with bat. Jaron Duran is starting to move the line a little bit better as well. He has been able to hit about a 270, and then Carlos Narvaez hitting a 280. He's starting to show a little bit of power as well, so you do love to see that. And for the Red Sox, while this is not necessarily the most supreme bullpen on the face of planet Earth, it's a good enough bullpen, in my opinion. As right now, they're number 9 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Brendan Bernardino, Roldis Chapman will give you a sub-3 ERA. You got Garrett Woodlock, who's been looking pretty solid as a long guy. Liam Hendricks being on the injured list really doesn't affect things too much, as he's not been that great thus far this season, but they've been doing a nice job mixing and matching in that bullpen. So if it is indeed Crochet versus Yarbrough, minus 143 or better, looking at the Red Sox plus 145 or higher, the Yankees, and then 8 or less, like the over 8.5 or higher, the under. 917, 918 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox hit the road to face off against the Walker Texas Rangers. Adrian, don't call him Doogie Howser, is on the bum for the White Sox, and you've got old Jacob deGrom on the bum for the Texas Rangers. Most places have this game off the board. Very strange. I'm not even seeing an opener over at FanDuel, but you know what? I've got my handicap. I set the Rangers at a minus 258 on the money line, and I set my total at 7.2. So 7 or less, I'm looking at the over 7.5 or higher, the under. I would need at least plus 259 to take a shot on the White Sox, and if I'm able to get a run line price of a minus 106 or better, I'll be willing to take a shot on the Rangers. If I'm able to get like a plus 110 or something on getting a run after the White Sox, I actually would be taking a look at that. I intentionally set a low run line price because for the Texas Rangers, they were able to bust out with their offense a few days ago against the Minnesota Twins. In that series, they did look very rock solid, but if you look at them overall for the season, man, it has been absolutely dismal. Entering in the day on Thursday, Texas tied for 26th with the White Sox in terms of runs per game at 3.5. This goes up to 3.6 when they're at home, and I have a White Sox team that they themselves are averaging 3 runs per game away from home, so both of these teams have just been very brutal in terms of their offense. And for the White Sox, I actually do think that there's a little bit of improvement to be had with this offense, because you now have Andrew Benintendi off the injured list. He's been able to give you 6 home runs. He's able to move the line, hitting about a 250 or so. You've been able to have Chase Meredith, who has been able to do a nice job finding a way to be able to move the line, get on base. He's been hitting north of a 290 for this team. You've got now Austin Slater back to the fold. He doesn't give you too much. And Miguel Vargas right now leading the way with 9 home runs. That's not necessarily great. As Luis Robert, that's really not great. Does have 21 stolen bases, but hitting a $185 with 6 home runs with not a lot of on base, that's relatively rough to say the least. But I mean, again, for the Texas Rangers, have so many different guys. They're right now hitting a sub 230 for the team. Jake Berger is actually starting to find it. Jake Berger is hitting a 225 for the season, but I mean, credit to him. He's up to 10 home runs. He's been hitting a little bit better recently, and Marcus Semien has looked a little bit better as well, but still, he, Adolis Garcia, the currently injured Jock Peterson, these guys hitting below a 220 have been an issue. Evan Carter has actually been nice. 370 on base. He's starting to look like the Evan Carter that we all know and love, but Corey Seager is hitting well below a 200 since coming off the injured list. Josh Smith has been able to hit 280 for this bunch, but I mean, it's a rough Texas Rangers lineup. Now, Jacob deGrom has been absolutely insane. He had like 2 rough starts to begin the season, but ever since then, this guy has been absolutely nails. As for one Mr. deGrom, he's been able to give you a 212 ERA. Fielding dependent is about a point higher, as he has been giving up a little bit north of a home run per 9 innings, but still is only giving up 2 walks per 9. Strikeout numbers are down. He's only getting about 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but all in all, I like what I'm seeing out of him. And for Adrian Hauser, I don't know where this has come from, because he was actually starting out the season with AAA Round Rock, and he was posting up a 5 ERA at the minor league level, but I mean, he's come in for the Chicago White Sox, and he's been great. 148 ERA through his 4 starts. He did give up, I believe, 3 runs at his last start, but still, 7.5 strikeouts, 2.2 walks per 9 innings, 1 home run allowed in 24 1/3 innings. He's doing a rock solid job. Now, the bullpen for the Chicago White Sox, not necessarily doing a rock solid job, and it's not to say that the Rangers have some amazing bullpen either, as you've had Luke Jackson really not be great for the team with north of 4 ERA. We'll say that Robert Garcia, Chris Martin, these guys have been able to give you sub 3.25 ERA. You're getting some good production out of Hobie Milner as well. And then on the flip side, you do have yourself this White Sox bullpen that is hovering right around about 22nd in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've been able to get some very good innings out of Mike Facil, but it looks like they're probably going to trot him out there as a starter a little bit more moving forward. You've got Jordan Leisure, Cam Bouger, Brandon Eisert, all posting up north of a 4.3 ERA. Tyler Alexander is a guy that they're kicking the tires on, so that's not necessarily amazing. But again, both of these lineups aren't necessarily amazing either. So if I could get like a plus 110 on the White Sox catcher and run half, I'd be looking there. Would need at least plus 259 to take a shot on the money line. Minus 107 better. Looking at the Rangers on the run line, then somebody told to wear a 7 or less. I'd like the over 7.5 or the under. 919, 920 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals play host to the Athletics. As Luis Severino is on the bum for the Athletics, and Michael Wacha. And if he has a bad start, it's the dying Pac-Man voice. Michael Wacha goes for the Royals. Right now, this is off the board because they have yet to announce Michael Wacha as a starter. So again, we have to go to my handicap. I set the Royals to where I'm willing to lay up to minus 198 on their money line, plus 107 or higher. Looking at that run line, we need at least plus $2 to take a shot on the Athletics and set a total of 7.7, 7.5 or less. Looking at the over and 8 or higher to the under. Luis Severino has some of the most interesting home and road splits I think I've ever seen. That's happening with these pitchers out there in Sacramento. As overall for the season, Severino only giving up 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, 477 ERA, but a 373 fielding independent. Strikeout numbers are not there. 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's way down there, but you take a look at what he's been able to do on the road, and Luis Severino on the road is looking like a Cy Young contender. Like Luis Severino on the road in 5 starts, 31 innings. He's allowed 0 home runs and has a 0.87 ERA and then a 7.10 ERA at home. Like this guy's getting banged around like a piñata in Sacramento, and then on the road, he looks like an indestructible force. It's absolutely insane. And then on the flip side, you've got a guy in Wacha who should be getting the start here. If it's not Michael Wacha, that would affect things quite a bit, but that said, he's been able to do a nice job giving you about a 3 or so ERA. Feeling dependent more on a 3.63. He's not getting a ton of punch-outs either. Only about 6.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's keeping the ball in the yard. He's giving up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. He's been able to give up only about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. And even though Lucas Ursuch is currently on the injured list for the Kansas City Royals, you still have a very rock-solid bullpen. Carlos Teceves has been able to give you a sub-2.25 ERA. You've had the likes of a Steven Cruz be able to step up. Daniel Lynch had been able to give you a sub-2.5 ERA. And keep in mind, this is a Royals team that entering the day on Thursday, dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game at home. They are only generating about 3.1 runs per game at home. Now, you do have Vinny Pasquantino. It's up to a double-figure amount of homers this year, so that's been a little bit helpful. And you do have Bobby Witt Jr. continues to give you about a 350 or so on base, but sad and unfortunately, he's not giving you as much power as he had in past seasons. You do have Drew Waters, who's been able to do a nice job, hitting for about 275 for this team, but you just don't have a lot of power on this team. Bottom 3 team in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat and a per-game basis. And for the Athletics, did get things going with that sweep over the Baltimore Orioles, but still, this has been a team that has been very suspect, to say the least. They had that 1-20 stretch in 21 games. Brett Rooker alongside Soderstrom are doing their part, though. A combined 29 home runs, both give you about a 340 on base. You've had Jacob Olson start to draw some walks, and he's hitting a 366 with 8 home runs right now. Like, he's been amazing. Miguel Andujar being on the injured list hurt this team, but Luis Rios has been able to give you about a 340 on base. It's a rock-solid Sacramento A's lineup, but this is also a bullpen that is right there at the bottom in terms of worst ERA. As if you look at guys that have given you at least 10 innings out of the bullpen this year, you've got 2 guys with a sub-4.25 ERA. That'd be Mitch Spencer there now trotting out there as a starter, and you've also had Hogan Harris. Justin Turner has been able to give you some solid innings, and Mason Miller, after a little bit of a shaky stretch, he has been now able to give you right around about a 4.5 ERA, so he's improving a little bit. But I mean, these guys like a Tyler Ferguson, TJ McFarland when he's been out there, Grant Holman, they're really just not cutting it for the team. And then on the flip side for the Kansas City Royals, they very much are, and I do think that for the Royals, they should be able to take it to the Athletics here. Plus $2 or more is what I need to take a shot on the A's. Like I said, plus 107 or better looking at that Royals run line, and then 7.5 or less like the over, 8 or higher the under. 921, 922 on the betting board. The Minnesota Twins are on the road. They're facing off against the Houston Astros. As we do know that it's going to be Chris Paddock on the bump for the Minnesota Twins, and right now for the A's, it's all to be determined. So this this is a game that's presently off the board. Now, I was seeing before that it should be Mr. Gordon and Mr. Colton Gordon going for the Astros, and if you do indeed get Mr. Colton Gordon, it's a circumstance where I'd be willing to set a money line of a minus 115 on the Astros. I would need at least a plus 116 to take a shot on the Twins. I did set my total at 8.6, 8.5 or less, looking at the over a 9 or higher. I'd be looking at this total under, and for Gordon, I do think that there's a little bit of positivity doing for him, and for Chris Paddock, I'm going to call it what it is. I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression on his front. As for Chris Paddock, if you look at what he's been able to do ever since his first start of the season, where he just got blowtorched, he gave up 9 runs, he's really been able to round into form, giving up 3 earned runs or fewer in each out of his last 12 starts. 3.53 ERA, so because of that really bad start, but 6.6 strikeouts, 1.1 home runs per 9 innings. He's only allowed a grand total of 7 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts, but 5 punch-outs or fewer in 4 of those last 5 as well. His walks are not necessarily too bad, but he's really not blowing guys away. I do have my question marks there, and for Colton Gordon, while he does have a 5.11 ERA through his 5 starts, he's coming off of by far his best start of his career on the road against the Cleveland Guardians, gives up a 1 run in 5 innings, and he's been able to do a nice job of giving you good command. He's giving up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. That needs to be worked upon. He has given up 4 home runs in his first 5 starts, but that said, he has also given up 3 walks in those 5 starts. He's getting a little bit north of 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, 365 fielding dependent, so positivity should be coming for him. He goes up against a Minnesota Twins team that's been right around about league average in terms of runs per game. Byron Buxton is up to 11 home runs, so he's been able to do a nice job there, but Royce Lewis, man, this guy is an issue for the team right now, hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Not giving any sort of power whatsoever. Brooks Lee along with Harrison Bader, both move lining at 255. Lee not a lot of on base for Harrison Bader, more like a 340 on base. Byron Buxton also about a 340 on base. Same goes for Ryan Jeffers. And Carlos Correa hit a little bit better, but still not a ton of power for the team. 21 RBI and hitting for a 291 on base. You just need a bit more there. And Ty France hitting for about 275 is rock solid. But what has been the saving grace for the Minnesota Twins has been the bullpen. Entering into the day on Thursday, top 7 team with regards to ERA. That did go up a little bit with what we saw against the Texas Rangers on Thursday, because they were throwing out their guys like position players, what have you. But you know what? This is still a team that has really good top-end relievers, as you've got Yuan Dodon, who's been able to give you a sub-125 ERA. Danny Kaluma is fresh off the injury list, has yet to give up a run thus far this season. Brock and Roll Stewart, Louis Varland have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Justin Topa has been solid as well. And then on the flip side, you've got a Astros team that has been in the top 8 with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've got the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, along with Caleb Orr, Steven Oker, Josh Hader, all being able to give you a sub-3 ERA. And then for the Astros, it's been a case where the offense has just not been great. They've been in the bottom 10 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game, but Isaac Paredes starting to pick it up. 14 home runs with a 350 on base. Jose Altuve, after a rough start to the season, he's up to now hitting at 270. Jeremy Pena, 375 on base with 9 home runs. You need more out of Christian Walker. You need Urias. Both of these guys sub-285 on base. Mauricio Dubon really doesn't draw a lot of walks, and it's hitting at 240, but Cam Smith now hitting at 250. Not giving you a ton of power, but he's starting to move the line. I do think that the Astros should be a little bit of a favorite here. One lay up to minus 114 on the Astros, plus 116 or higher. Looking at the Twins, and then in after less, looking at the over 9 or higher. The under 923, 924 on the betting board. The Cleveland Guardians are on the road. They're facing off against the Seattle Mariners. We do know that it's going to be Gavin Williams on the bump for the Guardians, and right now for the Seattle Mariners, it's all to be determined, and that's why this game is presently off the board. When I was looking a little bit before, they were showing that Luis Castillo should be getting the start for Seattle, and if that is indeed the case, I did set the Mariners at a minus 149 on the money line. We'll be able to lay up to a minus 148 there, plus 150 or higher looking at the Guardians, and then set a total to where it's 7.5 or less. I'd like the over 8 or higher. The under for Luis Castillo, way down with the strikeout numbers, fewer than 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, by far a career low for him, but what has also been a career low for him, home runs allowed per 9 innings. He has really done a nice job of being able to keep the ball in the yard, so as he's getting into a little bit more of an advanced age of 32, he does need to be able to learn how to mix and match, and he's been able to do so. 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He's actually up to 7.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, so we'll give him a little bit of credit where it is due, but still, 331 ERA, 367 fielding dependent, coming off of giving up 6 runs in that last start against the LA Angels, but he has been a far better pitcher when he has been at home rather than on the road. That's typically the case with the Seattle Mariners pitchers because Seattle is so pitcher friendly, but 225 home ERA, 4.59 ERA on the road, and then you've got a guy in Gavin Williams who has been able to do a much better job of being able to keep the ball in the yard yard this season. The big issue that you've got with him is the walks. As for Mr. Gavin Williams, right now, he's been getting the strikeouts with darn near 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 5 walks allowed per 9, giving up 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. That's passable. 3.86 ERA, but a 4.40 fielding dependent. He's going up against a Seattle Mariners team that, again, they do generate a little bit less offense at home rather than away from home, because if you look at ballpark factors, Seattle is the most pitcher-friendly ballpark in all of baseball, but big dumper Cal Raleigh just continues to supply for the team. He is up to 26 home runs this season. He is on pace to perhaps be able to set an American League record. He has been that good. And for the Seattle Mariners, you've got plenty of guys that are moving line. J.P. Crawford just below 400 on base. Julio Rodriguez, after a rough start to the season, 10 home runs, hitting at 260 now. As he progresses, Ori Polanco has regressed. Now he's back to hitting at 262 with 10 home runs himself. But Roddy Tella is hitting for no average whatsoever. 10 home runs this far this season. You've had Randy Arozarena give you 342 on base, but it just feels like he's not giving you a ton at the plate for Seattle. It's been a league average bullpen in terms of ERA. The top end guys have been great. Matt Brash has yet to give up a run since coming off the injured list. Gabe Spire, Andres Munoz, these guys have been able to give you a sub 225 ERA. Jackson Cowher in a small sample size has been solid as well, but Casey Lugumina is really starting to go downward, north of a 4.5 ERA. When you've had him out there, Colin Sider is currently on the injured list, has been all sorts of disastrous for the team as well. Trent Thornton has been awful, and then flip side for the Cleveland Guardians, after they were number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA last season, right around about league average this year. Emmanuel Clase has been a little bit better recently, as he's got his ERA back down to a 3.41 after a brutally bad start to the season, and it's still only allowed 1 home run this season, so credit to him. You do have a guy in Hunter Gaddis who's been consistent all season long, 12 punch-outs per 9, sub 2 ERA, and then Cade Smith, 13.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, sub 250 ERA, but these guys like a Jacob Junis, who's a little bit more of a long guy, you have had as well Matthew Festa, guys like this, busting up a north of a 3.80 ERA. That's been an issue, but even bigger issue is how top-heavy this Cleveland Guardians lineup is, as you've got Jose Ramirez giving you a 390 on base with 12 home runs, and then you've got Steven Kwan hitting above a 300 at the leadoff spot, but so many of these guys, Nolan Jones, Bo Naylor, John Kenzie Noel, Lane Thomas, hitting below the middle line of 200, Will Wilson, when he's out there, Austin Hedges, these guys have been rough. Carlos Santana, 350 on base. Colin Manzardo does have 11 home runs, but he's hitting just a 210 as well. I do think that for the Seattle Mariners, they should be a nice size favorite as a result. 7.5 or less, looking at the over 8 or higher, the under, and then for the Mariners, blown delay up to minus 148 with them, plus 150 or higher, looking at the Guardians. 9.25 and 9.26 on the card. The Toronto Blue Jays are on the road, facing off against the Philadelphia Phillies. Ranger Suarez is on the bump for the Phils, and Kevin Gausman is on the bump for Toronto. Total is anywhere between 8 to 8.5. On the 8.5, under is minus 125. The over is plus 105. On the 8, the over is anywhere between minus 110 to a minus 120. And the under is anywhere between even a minus 110 and minus 125 to minus 132. That number on the Phillies, plus 108, plus 115. That number on Toronto. And I said the Phillies at a minus 154. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line with them. For Kevin Gausman, has been in a really bad stretch recently, as Mr. Gausman overall for the season, posting up an ERA that is hovering right around about a 3.87, but the fielding independent has been a half a point lower. To his credit, he's only giving up 1 home run per 9 innings. Strikeout numbers are a little bit down with about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but that ERA goes up to a 4.35 on the road. He's allowed at least 3 runs in 6 out of his last 9 starts. Meanwhile, for Ranger Suarez, he had that disastrous first start where he gave up 7 runs in less than 4 innings. Ever since then, he has made 6 starts. He has allowed 6 runs. He's allowing 2 walks per 9 innings, has only allowed 2 home runs over the course of 39 and 2/3 innings, so he's filling 6.5 innings per start, which is big because this is a Phillies bullpen that's currently in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Fully recognize that you've had Jordan Romano look a little bit better, but he's still giving you north of a 6 ERA. You've been having Carlos Hernandez be awful for the team. Matt Strawman's starting to pick it up, and Orion Kerkering down to a sub 3 ERA, but having Osari Alvarado out of the fold has really been hurting this bullpen as well. But you do have a Philadelphia Phillies lineup that is also hurt by the fact that you've got Bryce Harper currently on the fold, and he was really the lone guy other than Kyle Schwarber who's been able to give you north of 8 home runs this far this season. Schwarber's been amazing. 377 on base, 21 home runs this far this season, but you still have guys who are able to move the line and get on base, as Alec Boehm, Nick Castellanos are both hitting above a 280. You've been able to get some relatively good average out of Trey Turner. He's hitting a 300 with 19 stolen bases. Even at the bottom lineup, Armando Sosa, when he's gotten opportunities, hitting at 275. Need a bit more out of Max Kepler, hitting at 210. That's been less than tremendous, and JT Realmuto has has been in a fun all season long. But for the Blue Jays, even though the lineup has been much better recently, I still have my question marks in terms of them providing the Powerball. George Springer has been able to give you 10 home runs. He's up to right around about a 367 on base. And then you got a whole bunch of other guys who are between about 7 to 8 home runs. Edison Barger, the currently on the injury list, Dalton Varsho, and he's been out for north of 40 games this season. Bo Bichette, and also Vlad Guerrero Jr., if I didn't mention him, all at between 7 and 8 home runs. And Guerrero, 380 on base, still moving the line. Bo Bichette is sitting at 275. You got Barger giving you about a 265 average. Nathan Luke's not a lot of power, but a 360 on base. Like, these guys are able to get on base, but they just can't drive them in. And Anthony Santander has been injured, and he has been terrible this season. Alejandro Kirk has been able to hit a 325. Do love to see that. And for the Blue Jays, this has actually been a top 10 team with regards to bullpen ERA. If you look at the last 30 days in terms of bullpen ERAs, they've been number 5 with a sub-3 bullpen ERA. They've signed some really nice guys that have been crafty for this team, as you've been able to get some good innings out of Brandon Little, who's been able to give you about a 2 or so ERA, so he's been able to come up big. Yariel Rodriguez, as a multi-inning guy, has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've had Paxton Schultz do a nice job of holding down the fort as well. Yimi Garcia being on the injured list hurts them, but even Mason Flaherty has been able to give you some solid innings. But do think that Indiana Rangers Suarez goes out there, dominates this one. I did something total at 8.3. With the way that Gausman has been pitching this year, I do like that 8 over. I do like the Phillies on the money line, 927, 928 on the main board. The Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're on the road facing off against the Detroit Tigers. Nick Martinez is on the bump for the Cincinnati Reds, and it is all to be determined on the bump for the Tigres. So this is a game that is presently off the board. This is because it's supposed to be Cadillo Montero, and oftentimes the Tigers will utilize an opener for him. If you do indeed get Mr. Montero going up against Nick Martinez, set the Tigers at a minus 146 on the money line, willing to go up to a minus 145 there, plus 147 or higher. Looking at the Reds, and did set a draw of an 8.6, 8.5 or less. Looking at the over, a 9 or higher to the under. For Nick Martinez, he does a really good job of being able to just keep things out in front of him. He has been giving up less than 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Last year, he was giving up less than 1.5 walks per 9 innings, so has been supreme there, but just doesn't give you a lot of swings and misses. 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, albeit he does a good job of inducing soft contact, allowing less than a home run per 9 innings. 370 ERA, more like a 360 fielding dependent, so he's been able to do a pretty rock solid job there. And you take a look at what Nick Martinez has been doing with regards to his home and road splits. It is very much night and day. 252 home ERA, 476 ERA on the road, despite the fact that he's only given up 3 home runs in north of 39 innings away from home. Meanwhile, for Montero, 4.30 ERA. He's been having a tough time being able to keep the ball in the air, giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. Air is probably going to be falling out of the balloon here. About a 5.30 fielding dependent, only 6 strikeouts to 3.3 walks per 9 innings, coming off of giving up 4 runs against the Chicago Cubs in his last start, and he's given up 3+ runs in 3 out of his last 5. Now he's backed up by a Detroit Tigers bullpen that, since the All-Star break of the 2024 campaign, they do have the number 1 bullpen ERA in the American League, and they were able to have Derek Skubal out there on the mound yesterday, so it's a pretty well-rested bullpen. They did have a little bit of an issue in that series against the Baltimore Orioles on Wednesday, but all in all, you look at these guys like a Brant Herter, Will Vest, Tommy Canley, Chase Lee, all these guys being able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Brendan Ennefe still rocking about a 3.30 ERA. You've had John Brebbia be pretty rock solid in this bullpen, though you did have that rough go of it against Baltimore over the past week. But that said, you take a look at this lineup of the Detroit Tigers, and they're very rock solid in terms of getting on base. Javi Baez now hitting north of a 265. Gleyber Torres north of 360 on base. And then you have a trio of guys, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, all with at least 13 home runs thus far this season. All 3 of these guys hitting at least a 265 with regards to average, or in the case of Torkelson, not quite there with the average, but a 340 on base, and you just aren't going to get that on the flip side for the Cincinnati Reds. Reds are actually a team that's in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from home, but much of that is because they put up that 24 spot earlier in the season against the Baltimore Orioles. That's an outlier that still lingers, and other than Ellie De La Cruz with 13 home runs, give you about 20 stolen bases, 340 on base. Nobody else on the roster with north of 7 home runs. Matt McClain, TJ Friedel are there, but McClain is sitting below a 200. You got TJ Friedel has been rock solid, 383 on base, and then Gavin Lux, he's moving line, he's giving you about a 360 on base. And Jose Trevino at the catcher spot, hitting a 295, but having Austin Hayes out of the lineup once again has been hurting this team. Will Benson, when he's been out there, has been able to give you some solid at-bats, but I mean, that's another guy that's been in and out all season long. 6 home runs, by the way, in his first 86 at-bats, so a little bit of credit where it is due, but it's also a Reds team that is average and slightly below average in terms of their bullpen, in terms of ERA. You've been able to have a few guys that have been able to come through for you. Brent Suter, Lyon Richardson, Taylor Rogers, these guys are giving you a sub 250 ERA, but Emilio Pagan just blows games at the absolute worst times. He gives up so many home runs. Graham Ashcraft is a long guy with about a 4 ERA. Ian Gabo is back in the fold. He has not been good all season long, so I did set it to where I'm willing to lay up to minus 145 on the Tigers money line, plus 147 or higher. Looking at the Reds, and then 8.5 or less, like the over 9 or higher, the under. And we wrap things up with 929, 930 on the card. The New York Metropolitans playoffs to the Tampa Bay Rays. Taj don't call Milton Bradley is on the bum for the Rays, and Clay Holmes goes for the Mets. The Mets are finding themselves between minus 154 to minus 164 favorites, and between plus 134 to a plus 142 is that number on the Rays. It is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. Right now, initial run line price I'm finding on the Mets is a plus 130. I'm willing to take that. I was willing to take a plus 103 or higher. I set my money line price at a minus 193. For Taj Bradley, just has not been able to do a great job of keeping the ball in the yard throughout his career, as he has a north of 4.5 ERA thus far this season, as he's been able to do a little bit better job of keeping the hard contact down this season with about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, but 3.5 walks per 9. First 2 seasons at the big league level was getting 10 plus strikeouts per 9 innings, down to about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, so do have a lot of concern there, and he's coming off of giving up 3 plus runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts. And for Clay Holmes, he has been very rock solid in terms of keeping the ball in the air. Do you think that there's still going to be a little bit of regression with regards to this 295 ERA? The fielding dependent, more in that neighborhood of 383, 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's only giving up about 1 home run per 9, so he's been pretty steady Eddie there. 3 runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 4 starts, and is backed up by a bullpen of the Mets that's currently number 2 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. You've had these long guys like Oscar Zobin along with Jose Buto both be able to give you a sub 350 ERA. You've been able to have some pretty good innings out of Max Kranick as well. He's been a little bit touch and go throughout the season, but when you need him in a pinch, he's giving you about a 3.5 ERA as well. And then the shorter guys like Reed Garrett, Edwin Diaz, these guys have been able to give you a sub 225 ERA, so they're doing a nice job mixing and matching there. And then this lineup has been really able to hit peak form. They're back in the top 8 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game, with Pete Alonso really leading the way. 15 home runs, north of a 395 on base, but Juan Soto, now 5 home runs over the last 21 days. He's been able to give you about a 389 on base. All of a sudden, he's starting to round into form, as he and Brandon Nimmo both had 13 home runs apiece. Francisco Lindor, playing through that injury, 14 home runs. He has been rock solid. And then bottom of the lineup, need a little bit more there. Tyrone Taylor, great in the field. At the plate, he's been a little bit suspect this year. Brett Beatty is only hitting a 222. Lewis Torrance is starting to see a little bit of regression as well. And then flip side, you've got a Tampa Bay Rays team that's actually up to being about league average, or slightly above average with regards to their offense. You do have a guy in Jonathan Orlando that I really like, who's been able to supply a north of 400 on base. And then Junior Caminero, Brandon Lau, these 2 guys up to a combined 28 home runs. Both the guys hitting between about 245 to a 250. Yandy Diaz has really gotten hot here over the last few days, 10 home runs, hitting above a 255, but then you got the likes of Danny Jansen and really the entirety of the catcher spot. Christopher Morel, Taylor Walls, all these guys hitting a 225 or lower. I will say Jose Cabrera, 330 on base, 25 stolen bases, one of the best marks in all of baseball. Why they sent down Chandler Simpson to the minor league level, I have no idea, but Jake Magnum is starting to swipe some bags as well. And you know that with the Rays, you're going to get a good performance out of the bullpen. Top 8 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. Pete Fairbanks is a really good closer for this team, but on top of that, Eric Orze, Manuel Rodriguez, these guys have been able to give you a sub 250 ERA. Garrett Clevenger more around about a 252, and even with Hunter Biggie out of the fold, should be able to get some good bullpen pitching there. But do think that both Bradley and Holmes do give up some runs here, so I tell it an 8.1. So I like the over and that run line of the New York Mets, and that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EMDB does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day on this podcast during the regular season, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. And also big thanks to Adam Rosenberg of the Sports Gambling Podcast for joining me in the last segment, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.